like, okay, so I'm gonna just say this right now. The weekly nature of this manga makes it feel very, very fucking exhausting, as this style of manga writing can be really hard for just like the way it works, because this is a binge kind of series. A lot of these chapters work extremely well in a what's the term? As a whole. They work better as a whole. But when you're reading it weekly, it's very hard to know the direction of the story. And for that same sense, you can really feel the pace for this chapter really picking up, because had this already been done, I would have flipped to the next page already. I'm just saying. I really think it's important to realize that Reiji is not padding this out, rather the way it's paced is designed specifically for you to get excited for the next chapter. He's writing this in the sense of a volume, not necessarily for the weekly style, which in a sense is a double-edged sword. As I pointed out earlier in this recording, a lot of what Mami says here is clearly what she genuinely believes, and this has kind of always been the case. Mami always acts different for everybody around her because Mami is projecting. Mami is projecting her own lack of agency in her life on the scenario that Kazuya finds himself in, because she genuinely believes that Kazuya has no agency in this situation. And this is extremely ironic if you read this arc from the beginning, because if you start to notice, the relationship between Kazuya and Chizuru begins to tilt in a way where Kazuya begins to not have any sense of control over the narrative, unlike the movie arc where Kazuya and Chizuru are essentially on equal footing to a degree. Kazuya starts the movie arc, and as the movie arc continues, they keep bouncing off of each other, and that's how the arc continues. Mami's raising a lot of serious ethical questions, but at the same time, the story is contradicting her through the narrative and how Kazuya interacts with the family, what the family says to Chizuru, what the family says to Kazuya, and what Grandma Negami says to Kazuya. As, if you notice, a lot of what Grandma Negami is saying to Kazuya and to Chizuru holds a great deal of truth. The only separating factor is it happened to start on this aspect of a lie. Mami projects and lies, but at the same time she believes lying is evil. Mami is a very complex character. She projects what people want to see. And it's a very ironic contrast to Chizuru's character, who is this person who wants to make people happy through dreams, through acting, while Mami projects a fake reality to people. Do you see the irony in Mami's character and who she is versus Chizuru's character and like what she tries to bring into the world? And either way, they both exist in a very morally gray area. While Mami represents more of the negative aspects of the situation, Chizuru represents more of the positive aspects. Yet at the same time, in this arc, you see how Chizuru's mistakes inevitably landed her in this situation. Again, I gotta really appreciate how effectively he uses his art to kind of hammer in these feelings. I think that's one of the things like people very much misunderstand. I think a lot of people generally believe that Reiji uses the art as just a way to act as shock value for a lot of the scenes that he presents, while in reality the way it's being presented is very intricate and detailed and very effective. Reiji even uses the intro of the chapter to bookend it. If you guys don't know what bookending means, it's basically when you introduce something in the beginning and use that as the ending. It's very common within books, films. Reiji even did this with a few different things. For example, Mami's intro to her backstory is bookended to the ending of the actual chapter, where you see a resolution to the thing that she was saying in the beginning. So with this chapter, we start with Chizuru's first smile to the family and how she's first introduced to the family, and now we see how that smile comes back and flips around as Mami says, Chizuru Mizuhara always smiles no matter what, with Mami literally saying in her monologue this is the end of Chizuru Mizuhara, the fake smile that Chizuru always tends to put to protect herself from pain. Also visually and thematically fitting, as you don't see Chizuru smiling as Mami's saying all of this, and then you see Grandma Negami's serious face as she recalls all the smiles and inevitably comes back to Grandma Sayuri's smile. And then, of course, with Kazuya's world literally visually being flipped upside down, with the panel slowly transitioning into him actually flipping upside down. This is, again, visual symbolism of what's going on with Kazuya's head and Kazuya's mind, as this is just kind of happening to him right in the middle of public as the screen zooms out and shows everything and how this is super vulnerable and in public and there's just people all around them. This big image also delivers a sense of scale, a sense of grandness to really make you understand how big a deal this is for the characters as their entire world is being flipped upside down. And of course the panels after is Kazuya naturally being upside down, with the panels even doing that to make you feel confused and unusual. And I think Reiji using the image where Kazuya sees Mami through his eye is a very interesting representation, as he's starting to see this person very differently than he has before. And I think one of the reasons Mami is genuinely able to cry here is not just because she kind of believed this and she's projecting her own lack of agency in her life, but rather also because she feels cornered and she knows that some of this is indeed rather false. Mami is actually afraid in this scenario, and I think she's using that own fear to bolster her ability to cry. The reason a person is able to project like this is because they lack a real sense of character in themselves. And this is why Mami is so good at this, is because she literally lacks a character. She literally lacks something she feels she can cling on to. And this is very much shown through her backstory, through her parents literally throwing away her only sense of sanctuary that her parents constantly stomp all over. And this is why Mami is so complex to me as a character, because Mami literally just has no sense of person. She's constantly trying to find the sense of person, but then also continues to deny it. In the process, she creates all these different coping mechanisms and all these reasons to do why she does, as she's a character of circumstance, a person who's been forged by the environment that she finds herself in. And the very reason she's like this is because of the way that she was raised and because of the way that she was essentially molded into this person. This is why every time she asks Chizuru whether she loves Kazuya and Chizuru doesn't admit it, she appears happy. Now, I kind of want to get into Grandma Negumi. So, Kazuya looks at Grandma Negumi and her face is extremely composed. The reason her face is extremely composed here is simply because she wants to confirm the truth of this before she jumps to any conclusion. She's had her suspicions, a lot of people have given her clues, and this is why Kazuya is extremely surprised that she's so composed, because she has gotten clues from literally everybody around her. Chizuru herself even told her, "What if I'm lying?" So this is extremely believable for her to not be nearly as shocked as everyone else. Rather, we get this expression. And this expression is really interesting because this ties in directly with what Grandma is saying here, that she views Chizuru as too perfect to be Kazuya's girlfriend. This is because Kazuya's family idolizes Chizuru. This is literally the case. Chizuru acts the role of the perfect girlfriend. This actually talks about exactly the issue of what's going on, because Grandma Negumi is part of the problem. Because Negumi, on one hand, is the god of the household. They respect her, they care for her, they show how they're a good family, yet at the same time, in the very first scene they're introduced, they're berating Kazuya, they're talking shit about Kazuya, they don't believe that Chizuru's his girlfriend, they don't believe any of that stuff. And what does Kazuya do in retaliation? He says that she is his girlfriend. Because, as you see throughout the very first parts of the series, everybody berates Kazuya, everybody gives Kazuya shit about his girlfriend, about, oh, Mami's too good for you, oh, she's totally out of your league. What the series is doing here is just talking about that, is specifically discussing that, and you see how it tears Kazuya apart in the very beginning of the series after the confrontation with Mami during the bar, where Kazuya feels sick inside, he regrets everything that happened, he feels terrible. And he goes to Chizuru and he talks to her, and you see how he doesn't even understand himself. He literally says, I don't know what I am as a person. What exactly am I? This is specifically talking about social pressure, the social pressure many young people experience due to the expectations that many people hold within society. This is the stuff that constantly gets brought up in anime and shit, but kind of gets glossed over in just the character feeling terrible. In this series, you see how it literally breaks Kazuya as a character. He doesn't view high school as a good memory. He barely mentions high school. Hell, he has an entire high school date with Chizuru because his high school experience was so terrible. Again, this is supposed to be a sense of social commentary on the characters and on the situation they find themselves in. This is why they ask so many questions about lies and the ethics of lies and what it means to actually lie to a family member. This is why all of this is constantly being discussed within the series. And then Grandma Negumi also has a whole thing that's going on with her character throughout this entire chapter as well. As you see Grandma Negumi giving into her emotions, getting slowly more and more angry as Mami is talking talking and Mami just continues to talk as she spins this narrative. And I think with all of that being said, Grandma Sayuri essentially acts as the truth within the lies. And I think this is why Grandma Negami essentially sees Grandma Sayuri here as she thinks of Grandma Sayuri's smile when thinking of Chizuru's. So this raises these questions. This raises that moment to where Grandma Negami is going to realize maybe there is truth to this. And maybe Chizuru wasn't really lying. And I think for next chapter, it'll definitely be Grandma Negami essentially questioning everything, but not completely, as I don't think she completely believes what Mami is saying here. It's just a matter of where does the truth begin and the lies end. This is, I think, where Grandma Negami has to start asking the right questions. And I don't think it's gonna go a terrible direction. I just think we're gonna have a very serious conversation coming up between Chizuru and Grandma Negami, specifically because I don't think the anger is directed towards Kazuya anymore. As you notice from this entire scenario, Kazuya has been essentially removed from the blame completely. He cannot even take the blame if he tried. And this is where Chizuru has to kind of really step up and try to make amends here. Also, just kind of on a funny note, upon editing this, I just realized this happened right after the rumbling in Attack on Titan happened and after the huge cliffhanger from Demon Slayer. So this is pretty funny to me that we're having this whole situation. Also, one other thing I wanted to mention, I didn't realize this until I looked at the date while I was editing. The next chapter, we get it early, and we get it on Valentine's Day. And Japan gets it like 1 day after, or 2 days after, I guess. Anyone else? Anyone else feeling this? Anyone else feeling this? Come on, come on. It could be very fascinating next week. We could have some very fascinating things happening next week. So yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to say. I just thought it was really funny that this whole explosion situation is just kind of happening as the rumbling happens and after Demon Slayer, and pretty much all these bombshells just going off left and right. And in My Dress Up Darling, Gojo indirectly confessed. So yeah, we got that episode too. Me having read the manga makes me very happy, but that's just my opinion. So, if you guys enjoyed this content, if you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe and like button, hit the bell icon to keep up with the uploads, and of course, expect some interesting and spicy stuff to come in the future, as I'm going to be discussing a little bit more stuff moving forward. I also didn't edit this video as much, as you can probably tell.
So that was a lie.
And yeah, as I promised, I'm going to be doing stuff a little bit differently now. So, with that being said, I've been Fate, and remember fellas, let's mosey.
Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me.
I just realized I have to wait another week for this. It's a good thing I'm good at theory crafting.